Good evening again. Welcome to my little video vlog. Need a name for it. Don't know exactly what I want to name it, but you guys can help me with that. Tonight, what I'd like to discuss is separation of church and state. It's a subject that's becoming kind of irritable in my brain. I know it's not front page news anymore, but just because it's not front page doesn't mean that we shouldn't discuss it, and so I am. It seems lately, whenever you turn around, there is a story somewhere about prayer in schools, prayer not in schools. And it usually focuses on Christian prayer in schools. Where I'm going with this is I'm getting tired of seeing our children forced to learn all about Islam. Some children in this nation are even being forced to learn how to pray like the Muzzies do. I'm not on board with that. If I find out my children are being forced to pray in the Islamic fashion, but not being allowed to pray as I want them to, there will be consequences. We have to stand up, and one of two things has to happen. Either we must demand that Muslim teachings be completely thrown out of the schools, or that Christian prayer be allowed back in schools. I'm tired of the 1% in this nation, and I'm not talking about the wealthy 1%. I'm talking about people like the transgenders, people like homosexuals, people like Islamists, anarchists, you name any one of these minority groups. Together they might represent 3% of the population of this nation, and that's together. I'm tired of them driving this ship. It's time to take back our nation, and we do it at the local level, and we do it by demanding that the fallacious argument about church and state be abandoned. There is nothing in the Constitution that says anything about separation of church and state. All it says is that there shall be no federal law that says only one religion is allowed in this nation. This nation is supposed to be a home for all religions, all stripes. But lately it's beginning to feel like it's only a home for Islam. This nation was founded by Christians. They wanted to make sure that there was religious liberty across the board. So they wrote in the amendment where there shall be no, I don't know the right wording right off the top of my head, but basically the federal government shall not establish a single religion that is the overarching religion of the land. That does not give the federal government, or the state governments for that matter, or even local governments, any power to say my child cannot pray at school, my child cannot wear a cross to school, my child cannot bring a Bible to school. Quite the opposite. It means my child is allowed to do that, and the federal government cannot interfere in any way, shape, or form with their free exercise of their religion, no matter where. Now, you'll hear people say, well, it's in the Constitution because of the Establishment Clause. No, it's not. You need to learn your history. They'll talk about the intent of the founders. If their intent was to keep religion out, completely out of the government entirely, they would have said so. These men were near geniuses. Some of them were geniuses. The whole argument about separation of church and state comes from some of Thomas Jefferson's papers. But none of them were ever codified into law, nor should they be. As much as conservative me hates, and I do mean hates, the Islamic religion, I know that as a constitutionalist, I have to accept the fact that it's allowed to be practiced here. Now, some of their practices are not compatible with living in this nation. Sharia law is definitely not compatible. And why I'm looking at this, and why in the hell are my eyes blue? Right here. Do you guys see that? Do you see that? What is that? Every time I lean forward, look at that. My eyes are blue. Not in here, because I do have blue eyes. See? So yeah, I'll give you that. I got blue eyes. But damn. Well, I'm off topic, but anyway. That was just, it threw me for a loop when I realized that. Anyway. As much as I hate the religion, it is allowed to be practiced here without interference from the government. But Sharia law is not compatible with constitutional law, so Sharia law needs to take a hike. If it's tried, it interferes with too many guaranteed rights of the Constitution. So they can have it one way or the other. They can't have it always. They can't be free to practice their religion, but at the same time trample your rights, my wife's rights, my kids' rights, your kids' rights, your family's rights. That can't happen. And that's why Islam is not, while it's, according to the Constitution, it's allowed to be practiced here, it just doesn't work as a religion here in this country. Christianity and Islam do not go together. They're diametrically opposed. But every other religion on this planet, pretty much, is allowed to be practiced here without interference from the government. And it's time for people to stand up and say so. If you're a Wiccan, if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Rastafarian, if you're a Christian, if you're the weird kind of Christian that we call Catholic, yeah, I'm talking to you people who pray to idols. Sin. That's a big one right there. If you worship trees, I don't care if you worship a snail, you're allowed to do so without government interference. They'll tell you, well, you're in a government building when you're at school, so it shouldn't be allowed. No, fuck you. You're allowed. The government cannot say no. Public funds built that building, not the government funds. Public funds, your tax dollars. So, yeah, your child can pray at school. If you're a person of means, I'm not. If I had the means, I would do weird things like challenge these things in court. But if you're a person of means, if you've got money, instead of buying a new car or, buying a second or third house, how about this? You take that money and you try to make lasting, meaningful change for this country. You don't have to ever go to war. You don't have to join the army. Even though I think you're a pussy if you don't. But do something. Do something to move this country back toward liberty and away from liberal fascism. And I think maybe we'll go on there while I'm here. I was going to end the video right here at about 10 minutes, but you know what? Let's talk about something else. something that is front and center almost every day on the news anymore. The anti-fascism movement, otherwise known as Antifa. These people claim that Trump is a menace to their civil liberties, that they are going to lose out on their freedom of speech and this and that. But in practice, when they go and have these rallies, their only job that they see is to stop debate. Now, this nation was founded on rancorous debate, violent debate oftentimes, but the goal was always liberty and the free exercise thereof. These Antifa people are actually practicing fascism. And if you support them, you need to re-examine what you're supporting. I'm not coming down on anybody, but what I'd like you to do, what I challenge you to do, is pick up Hitler's book. Adolf Hitler, that's right, I'm mentioning him. Fascist in chief. Pick up his book, Mein Kampf, otherwise known as My Struggle. Pick that up and give it a read. Compare what he says to what the Antifa movement is saying. And then come back and leave a comment about how you still believe that Donald Trump is the problem. Because if you leave that kind of a comment, you need to have your brain scooped out with an ice cream scooper, because you're dumb. You're not just dumb, you are dumb. And we're talking down in the holler, Kentucky dumb. Eating coon out of a trash can dumb. Looking up to see the moon from an outhouse, outside of the house near a tree stump dumb. That's how idiotic you gotta be if you can read Mein Kampf and still come back and tell me Donald Trump is the problem. We also need to require that laws be put in place that allow for the free and unfettered exercise of protests, non-violent protests. Because when you have a violent protest, it is not a protest. It has become a riot. And oftentimes, and we saw it over the past few years in Charlotte, in Baton Rouge, we saw it in Ferguson, we saw it all over the place, even as far back as 1991 with the Rodney King riots. We saw that these were not protests. These were people out looking to loot, looking to burn, and looking for the thinnest excuse to do so. We need to put laws in place that make that kind of behavior an automatic felony for, at least, because it is not the fault of Tony or Mario or Luigi. Yes, I'm using generic stereotypical names, but it is not their fault that you're pissed at the government. They came here, they opened up a pizza shop or opened up a mechanic shop right along the main street of a major city. You're pissed at the government. You think that it's okay to throw rocks and bottles and Molotov cocktails and break windows, and you walk by their shop and you shatter their windows, you light it on fire. These people came here with next to nothing most often and worked hard to get where they were at. Most of them came here and maybe worked for their dad or worked for a friend of their dad, saved up money, put a down payment on a building, and built their own business with their own two hands. and you think it's okay because you're a little miffed at something that really doesn't concern you. And I'm talking to all of you rioters who went out and rioted because of some racial issue. If it did not directly involve you, you need to stay the hell home. Michael Brown had nothing to do with 99% of the people in Ferguson, yet they came out and thought it was okay to riot. We all know who I'm talking about, because the same style riots happened across the country. Whenever a particular ethnic group here in this country gets mad, they think it's okay to riot and burn and loot, and it's not. Get your ass back to work. You don't like what's happening? Vote. Don't sit on the sidelines and bitch until you have a chance to light somebody's business on fire that had nothing to do with anything that you're mad about. You know, the Hungarian guy who comes over and opens up a bakery right next to the mechanic shop owned by the Italian guys. Think it's okay then to shatter the windows in that bakery shop? Light it on fire? Pee on the cakes? Whatever it is that rioters do? We need to make these high felonies. We need to break the cycle of violence and encourage a cycle of debate instead. We can move this country forward. We can take all viewpoints into account, but only if we're all willing to sit down at the same table and have a respectful talk. Disrespect, piss poor behavior gets you nowhere. Try doing it in your own home. Go home because your boss got you mad. Go home, find your wife's favorite dress and rip it. If you're a wife, go smash your husband's TV because one of your coworkers said something racially insensitive. So go home and smash your husband's TV. See where that gets you. And if there's kids watching this, yeah, let's teach you a little lesson about life right now. You don't like what mom or dad did? Go to your friend's house, bash his shit in, crush his Xbox, smash his cell phone. See how often you get called over to that house again. See how quickly his parents freak out at your behavior. What I'm saying is, there are times when violence is the way and times when it's not. And in politics, violence is not acceptable. Debate, discussion, compromise. These are the things that will move our nation forward. Not violence, disrespect, and abuse. You guys have a pretty good night, all right? God bless America.